All right, so we are going to be doing a general discussions types of recording, and we'll be someone in my inner Professor Black Truth as well as Politics Watch. Maybe a dream come through if I could see both of them doing a podcast or maybe even doing a YouTube video and so on. But anything can happen. But anywho, so we are going to be continuing the very tragic story of Khanice Jackson, which I did a recording on over last weekend, and yeah. To those who already don't know, Khanice Jackson was the unfortunate young lady that became new victim of Jamaica's murder machine. She was strangled, as those was been reported, and sexually assaulted by a so-called neighbor who lived in an area who was basically a man who was 30 years of senior named Robert Fowler. Now, guess what? Interesting. Guess what his nickname was, which I recovered. Backrow. Yes, so you can tell this is someone. You wouldn't think that this is someone who has a morally questionable character if his nickname is based on. His nickname is based refers to the slave, white supremacist slave owned plantation owners, because that's what Jamaica's term for the plantation was, backroads. So and I'm presuming this is a black man. Anyone who want to have a nickname like that, yeah, surely can't think that this person doesn't have a morally questionable character. Alright, it's like me as a black person named myself Richard Spencer, David Dukes, or Jared Taylor, who are all white supremacists. Like, you'd be wondering about the mentality and the pathology of me if I were to name myself after anti-black racists at that. So, but it's neither here nor there. No, Khanice Jackson, as I was saying again, that unfortunate 20-year-old girl who then was again killed by Rob Fowler. And the thing is, when I mentioned in my other recording that I'm not going to really say jump the gun and say, okay, this guy definitely did it until there's a confession and proof. And sure enough, the guy confessed and he basically pointed out what happened. And let me break this down to people. Robert Fowler did not confess because of a crisis of conscience. Because if he did, he'd have turned himself to his police soon after he did it. And the thing is, though, that I will, as much criticism I'll have of the JCF at times, I believe there are criticisms to be made of Jamaica Constabulary Force and the so-called injustice system that Jamaica has. I'm going to tip my hats off to them. They did a very good job because obviously they're working on tips, or maybe there was something about this guy, the fact that he was closely associated with this Miss Jackson. That a lot of people are saying, okay, this guy's definitely a prime suspect. All right, and I won't be surprised because we're going to talk about Fowler this soon. But the thing about this is not so much going to be about Khanice Jackson herself. She's going to be a bulk of this, but is more a much bigger thing, and this has I'm going to talk about the undercurrent of Jamaica and how her death connects it and what I believe should have happened as a result after her death. Now, yeah, Robert Fowler again confessed to murder, and again he's not doing this because he figures that he saw the light. He came to the side of the angels. The guy know that basically that he was cornered, that the jig was up, that there's so much insurmountable evidence against this demonic piece of POS, and those who know what POS stands for, I need not really spell it out. He knew that the only thing I can do right now is just basically wave the white flag and just act and just confess to my litany of sins. So he's just doing it to save his own neck because he knows. And I'm going to tell you about the pathology of Robert Fowler. And this is based on what I've been reading so far about this guy. That this guy, when you think of some of these murderers in Jamaica, you think of these ignorant, backward, gruff, loudmouth males. I dare not call them men. Who basically have the scarcity mindset, and that is believe that, okay, if I can't have you, no one can. And that plays into what Fowler is, but he's much deeper than that, though. But what Fowler is doing, which I think is smart, and I don't mean this as a complimentary man, is that he knows that if I confess, I'm going to get less time because he's hoping, because I'm sure he's smart enough to understand the Jamaican so-called justice system, that he knows, okay, if I go before a judge who may most likely is going to be a criminal sympathizer, like a lot of the ones we have in the system, that okay, I'm probably going to be get this joke sentence. Like I probably get 20 or 30 years, which means that he'll be eligible for parole in about less than probably like half of halfway through his sentence or even before that. Because he knows that these are only cards that he has. Though is that he's going to be off the streets for a while, hopefully. But he also knows that they have some the Jamaican so-called justice system considers criminals and deviants a more of a protected class than Jamaican ordinary civilians. So he's no police car. No. When the pathology of Fowler's, and from what I read that Fowler, from what I understand, that he was a genuine sociopath. Though he wasn't again like these loud, boisterous bad man or dons you see, like who basically love attention as much as they like bloodlust and carnage. This a guy from what I'm read was a very soft-spoken, quiet person who kept himself. Because when I read it, but the things was very interesting that even people in the community where he and Khanice Jackson live, all of them basically said that okay, there's something off about this guy. I think this woman said that this guy tried to put the moves on her, and he basically wanted her to be his bedroom buddy, if you know what that term means. And she said, "Nah, I'm good." I mean, like, and I think this woman was fortunate though. She didn't end share the same tragic fate that Miss Jackson would later share though, but she just knew that there's something creepy about this guy. And even some of them, and they even said that there are some person who, one passengers who goes to church, want to take him to go to church and be baptized. And Fowler only went there once and never returned. I think he probably knew that God knew what was in his heart and said, "Look," and probably God and said, get out of my whole, get off these holy grounds. I do not want. I sense a very demonic spirit within you, and God is not saying that. And God's saying that because I know what's in your heart, and I know that you have no intention of changing for the better or seeking to be come to the side of the angels. So, Fowler pretty much knew that he didn't belong there. Because I'm pretty much surprised that the fire didn't that like he didn't burst into flames once he entered those churches. But and I think some other customers said that he screwed her over when doing some work. So this was a guy that had there's some undertones that there's just some very shade about this guy. And let me get into the very tragic thing with Khanice Jackson that led up to her death. And it goes her boyfriend. I think I forget her boyfriend's name. And I mean, it's a dude. Really, I think he's about her age, and I really show some praise to this young guy because this guy really genuinely loved her, and the thing is that what was very sinister and very disconcerting was the fact that he knew, and as well as her mother knew. I think they probably encountered Fowler personally, and they basically said, "There's something off about this guy, don't you?" Because especially her boyfriend was basically telling her, warning her, "Don't go around near this guy. There's something off about this guy." Because the thing is, what was said is that Fowler, I think, used to give Kenise a right to work to and from work, and so she probably thought Kenise was lulled into false sense of trust because she even stood up, took up for this guy, even though her mother, as well as her own boyfriend, was basically telling her, "No, this guy, there's something very sinister and shady about this guy. Don't go near him." Because even though you saw the WhatsApp message with her boyfriend, this guy was basically, I wouldn't say the man, he was telling her right up front, said, "Look, I don't trust this guy. I don't like this guy. Stay away from him, though. 'Cause I don't want you on people I don't trust." And yeah, some people are going to interpret that, oh, the boyfriend's too controlling, that this guy is a simp, he's a gal clown, that the guy does really, this guy does basically is just trying to run his girlfriend's head. And sadly, Khanice Jackson, and this is not to say she deserved her fate, though. She was basically telling him, say, okay, okay, so you haven't given me a good reason why I should trust this guy. And she basically said, you can't really tell me what to do. And unfortunately, and the funny thing she said, which was, and this is not funny, I meant to say the irony, said that this guy often taking me to work to and from work with no free of charge. Basically, say he's much safer than these taxes because yeah, there are a lot of these predatory so-called taxi men who basically sexually assault and rob a lot of their female victims. So she probably thought, okay, this guy is probably a step up from this guy was a better alternative than some of these taxi men. And yeah, a lot of these so-called taxi men have ruined the reputation. A lot of decent, honest cab drivers in Jamaica who really are trying to make a decent living. But the irony, cruel irony of her that statement would soon strike her, strike her, soon strike, unfortunately, because she basically said, okay, this guy is safe from these taxi men, and we know how that turned out, unfortunately, because I think what she had said that hey, he had probably tried made passes at her, and she said, "Nah, I don't see it that way." But and the guy, I think she probably thought, okay, this guy, we have an understanding. But what these followers saying, okay, yeah, I know you saying that your lips are saying no, but I'm gonna find a way to just to get go to find an opening. And the fact that I think she even told me she was involved, and I said, and but to people like follow who are basically sexual predators, that don't really mean nothing. That's just competition for me. I mean, like he's basically because he was probably thinking that okay, she is one of these loose, fast girls that really that he could easily find an opening for. It's just like with a lion and it's like with a lion that stalks a gazelle or a zebra. Like the lions and the gazelle, lions or even tigers with their prey, they're not just going to openly attack you right there. They're just going to just circle around you. They're just going to assess the situation, and then when they're circling closing, then just pounce right there. And this is what he probably saw. He just saw her as a gazelle, and he was just this ravenous predatory cat that struck when he saw an opening. And the thing is that led to him. But the thing is, which was very unfortunate with Khanice Jackson, and again, we're not beating up on her, but she, in her last moments before this devil killed her, she was basically saying to herself, probably is that only had listened to my boyfriend though, because my boyfriend, I didn't take him seriously. I was didn't take my mother seriously. Cause there were people warning her about this guy that there's something about the guy, and obviously she didn't really talk to some of these other people in the community because obviously some of these people said there's just something shifty about this guy. This guy is just there's some about his aura that does not reek of any positive vibes. That this guy was basically put playing a part though. He's acting as the seemingly innocent old elderly gentleman when he definitely was anything but. And the thing, like I said, and I think what with Khanice Jackson, I think she probably thought, even though she thought they understand, she probably thought, okay, this was probably a father-daughter relationship. This is just my theory that she probably thought, okay, surely this older gentleman who was in his 30s before at the time I was basically came up my mother's womb. Surely he does not have any ulterior motives, and surely he understands the boundaries. That is just nothing there between us. That this guy is just being a good Samaritan. Yeah, that did not play out very well, unfortunately, with this poor girl. Yeah, she unfortunately learned that very hard lesson. Yeah, that sometimes you have to develop a sixth sense about people, especially here in Jamaica this day and age. Because Jamaica, and this is going to lead to what I really want to get to very soon, that Jamaica, we've developed this culture decades where we're having a sinful, lustful nature. Especially, unfortunately, too many of our men is that is being normalized. That hey, women are basically treated as just indisposable objects, and then if those and if things don't go well with you two and that particular woman, if she refuses your advances, or if you're in a relationship with her and she wants to go about her business, yeah, there's some of these so-called men are going to be on that tip that hey, if I can't have you, no one can. And I say this to say I've done several recordings of females, especially. And for tonight, we're going to focus on the females. We're not really going to be, because I'm not going to overlook the men who are victims of these devilish monsters that are inhuman guys in Jamaica. I've never done that, but we're going to focus on this epidemic where a lot of these women are basically victim of demons like this man. All right, and the thing with Khanice Jackson is that this girl would never live to see what she could have become. Because I think even when you hear her boyfriend, he basically said that they could have had a future, and I think she said something that was kind of clear, that was basically foreshadowing her what was going to happen to her. She said, when I'm not around, you're going to have to be strong. You're going to have to carry on without me." Because I think probably some maybe deep down she probably figured that she knew, probably maybe she didn't know, probably at some point, that she may not live to fully live her life, whatever. Or she probably figured, okay, anything can happen at any time. And but this was basically a cruel irony right there, is that this was almost a direct foreshadowing of what was going to happen to her. And as I said, I can't imagine what her last moments like, but I know that it was the last moments was basically her saying to herself is that my boyfriend was right. I really should have trusted him rather than and so on. And that's unfortunate. All right. And the thing is, I can't imagine what her mom, and I think she has a sister from what I'm reading. I don't know the sister's name. And the thing is that I'm not sure what happened to her dad, because again, her dad's not been mentioned. I'm not casting aspersions, I'm not making assumptions. I know of a case where the dad's not in their life, or the dad passed away, or dad's relocated, and he's probably elsewhere at this moment. But whatever. But I can't imagine what her mom especially, because this is the only one who's come forward. Because I've said it before, no woman, no parent should have to bury their child, cause basically if you're a good parent, especially a parent basically the logical order is that the child must bury the parent, because the child is supposed to outlive the parent, because the parent at this point has lived their lives for the most part, and the child has to carry on the legacy. But unfortunately, her mom and basically rest of her family who haven't been mentioned. Again, don't know what happened to her dad, or if he's in the picture or anything. But only her family can answer that question if they see this video. But I can't imagine that. And if I ever become a parent and so on, I wouldn't want to imagine something happened that to my child. I mean, like however that child exit the world, but especially through foul play, knowing that someone deliberately took this child away from her mom and her sibling and the rest of her family and her boyfriend whatsoever, is that this is like, I can't even imagine. And we have to say prayers for her mom though, and the rest of her family and her boyfriend, and so on, because these people, I can't imagine what they're going through. And no, and again, no parent especially should be burying their child. But what's also very interesting about her evil murderer, whatever, is that I think it's reported that he has children too. I think he has two sons and a daughter. And the thing is, though, is that I can't imagine. I don't. My prayers go to them too, because I don't know what the relationship was like between the son, his children. I mean, obviously his baby mother and him weren't together, and I wouldn't be surprised if there were some problems in that relationship. Maybe I wouldn't be surprised if the baby mother were to come out and say, yeah, there was something off about him. He was this and he was that. I wouldn't be surprised, or even if some of his children probably said that their dad had a very sinister side to him, whatsoever. But I have to pray for his children too, because they're gonna, and the things, I hope that they don't publish their names or their faces, because they will have to go through this. But the things with people who know them personally, they're going to have to live with that stigma of knowing that their dad is a monster. And the thing is that it shouldn't be like that. And I hope the baby mother, I don't know if all three children have the same mother. I don't know. This is what I'm reading. But we can pray that hopefully that they won't be stigmatized with the actions of their father. Because even the daughter, and I wouldn't be surprised if her and Khanice were close in age, because she said she's a teenager. And Khanice was just coming out of her teenage years right now, as being 20 years old. I wouldn't be surprised if they're close in age. But even her daughter, the daughter of this devil, I'm sure it's going to be hard for her knowing that what her dad did, whatever. But I wouldn't be surprised if there were signs already, because it's very clear that this guy was very a very shifty individual. Because even the neighbors, and especially Khanice Jackson's own boyfriend, said that there's this unholy aura about this aberration in human guys. And the thing I'm also betting is that this guy, there, if you check out this guy's background, this guy probably there are some telltale signs that this guy was on a dark path. Because thing about this, and I don't claim to be a psychologist, but I'm well versed in human psychology up to the degree where I can understand that there's always indications how a person turns out. Because what they said with this guy fits the profile of a lot of these serial killers and these sexual predators. And one particular comes to mind. To all my fellow Canadians out there, if you hear this, you remember this guy from like 11 years ago, former Colonel Russell Williams. And again, same thing. Russell Williams was a decorated Army veteran in the Canadian Forces. And this guy, unfortunately, is also a serial predator rapist. Because either he raped and killed two women, and I think he also had this habit of breaking into people's houses and steal, and had this fetish for just stealing women's undergarments. And I think there was some parts where he dressed up in women in drag, and that showed you how that he had a very sick pathology. And the thing is, that I was very telling that he had a wife that he obviously did not love. And the thing is, what was our telling is that people pretty much didn't figure that Russell Williams would be had this dark side to him, because for I remember this, he was soft spoken, he was quiet. You didn't really expect that he'd do anything. But the thing you have to understand about sociopaths, the most dangerous sociopaths are the most quiet and the most soft spoken ones. I mean, when you think of psychopaths, you think of these loud, boisterous, over top cartoonish caricatures in real life. Some of the most dangerous, sinister killers and rapists. These are some of the people that you know. So, because like Unabomber, Theodore Kaczynski kept to himself a lot, very quiet. I think even Jeffrey Dahmer, from what I understand, he wasn't really kind of had this charming, soft-spoken personality. From what I remember, even a lot of these mass shooters, especially in America, which breeds a lot of these kind of devils. A lot of them start as these very soft-spoken, quiet individuals. We're basically volcanoes ready to erupt, that they're going to just biding their time, waiting for the moment where they can show their true nature. And this is what this guy did, though. This guy sounds like he was a very, very intelligent person. He wasn't sound like this ignorant, this one of these ignorant criminals that Jamaicans are stereotyped as. This guy sounded like a genuine sociopath, though. This wasn't a man that was this stupid, low labamouth, as saying here in Jamaica. I don't think they use that term anymore. He wasn't like one of these low, boisterous gunmen or dons, though. This was a guy that knew how to keep to himself. He just basically was like a predator. That was what he was, because someone said online, and I have to show it to this person, said he rehearsed a scene when he saw Khanice Jackson. He figured that so if I can't bed her the natural way, that I'm gonna have my way with her no matter what. I don't care if she's like I'm basically old enough to be a father to her. And again, I'll say Khanice Jackson. Don't again with her dad. I'm pretty sure if her dad was in the picture, he probably would have told her not to fuck with this guy, and so on. But the thing is that she thought this guy was probably the same age as her dad or whatever, and he thought, okay, this is a guy that's up there in age, that he's probably he's not a harmful individual. No. So when going up there in age doesn't mean that they're less harmful or whatever. That means that they're more experienced with their evil, whatever evil and dangerous mindset. That's just all it means. Age don't mean nothing. If you're a dangerous predator in human guys. Alright, and yeah, so sorry not to lose my train of thought though, but this guy, like I said, this guy almost reminds me of Russell Williams, because the same mindset. And it also shows you that sometimes the most dangerous people are the most quiet. Because you know what it says, empty barrel makes the most noises. Because what happens is that when these people show their true colors, and after being so good at hiding what they are, you'll be surprised to see how dangerous and how capable they are of doing some unspeakable things like this guy. But here's what I really want to get to with Khanice though. Khanice Jackson, as horrible as what this happened to this poor woman, young lady, it's not the first. She's not the first victim of the murder culture of Jamaica. She's not going to be the last. And what I don't like about the coverage she's getting is a lot of these politicians, a lot of these groups, and let's just say so many people, too many members in the so-called church. I'm sorry to beat upon you, but a lot of them see Khanice Jackson as a photo op, though. Yeah, they're saying, "Oh, we condone this evil and devilish act." There are articles about her in the paper, and the thing you have to remember at this point, her trending in the headlines is going to die down soon. By the end of next week, we're going to be moving on to the next person. But to be honest and fair, the next people have already come this week, because I think there's this teacher, older female teacher, who also has been disappeared under very mysterious circumstances, and her only thing that's left is her handbag. And we've seen how this plays out. I want to be wrong, but these scenarios play out. A lot of these scenarios play out in the same way, unfortunately. But as you know, the politicians and whoever and all the people in the media are not really going to talk about this woman. And the thing is, what this says about Khanice Jackson again, which I do not like, and I'm not trying to like trip over my words, is that Khanice Jackson says a photo op. Khanice Jackson is what's happening for her is that they see a young, very physically attractive Browning, and sorry, I'm gonna have to go there because remember the teacher who the teacher and even this other young woman who disappears, gone missing. Forget their names. And again, it's not by deliberately though, but the thing is, I can't remember everybody's names in some of these recordings. You ain't hear the peep from anything about these women, or even this older taxi man, 70 years old, who was murdered by some criminals recently. You're not really hearing anything about them, because yeah, they're not a photo op though, because Khanice Jackson, as I said, very beautiful, physically attractive young lady who, from what I understand, was basically a very virtuous person. I didn't know her. I can't verify that for myself. And they are saying, okay, this is just going to be like Jasmine Dean from last year. Again, another physically attractive brown young girl who disappeared in mysterious circumstances, and we can unfortunately only assume the worst with Jasmine Dean, but she's just meant to be Jasmine Dean 2021. And what she should have been, unfortunately, I think she should have been what George Floyd was last year. And you remember what George Floyd, when that demonic scumbag cop Derek Chauvin and his fellow race soldier accomplices had to kill this man. It did something that was good. Not to say George Floyd's death was a good thing. It wakened up what it showed the world. It reminded the world what America is truly based on: anti-black racism. And for several weeks during the summer, a lot of people were going on a tear. A lot of people were shaking up the establishment up to the point where where a lot of these colonial statues were gone. A lot of these reforms, even though a lot of them were basically for just to save face, though they're just basically saying, okay, don't destroy the establishment. All right, we're just going to give you symbolic gestures just to quiet you all down, because we don't want this to. We're not trying to have turn this into another all out revolution. Or I don't remember a lot. I remember the LA riots where Latasha Harley getting killed by that despicable soul at that Korean supermarket convenience store. How the black community tore up, was tearing through things, and also with the Ronnie King riot and so on. But it showed this was basically a lot of the populace saying enough is enough. We see what America is showing itself what it truly is. We need to rise up and take arms. Now, unfortunately, with George Floyd, and as I predicted, Once the momentum died down, everything went back to normal, and the establishment has basically been resorted itself. I mean, like it's been more cautious now, but because they know that they could be people could uprise up again. But that was a good thing about George Floyd. And the reason why I'm taking Khanice Jackson should have been Jamaica's ultimate wake up call. Khanice Jackson should have been Jamaica finally stopped being in denial about what Jamaica truly is, which is basically a murder mill where ordinary Jamaican civilians are basically blood sacrifices for the crime demon. We're not going to get to the other head of that demon, which is the corruption demon, but the crime demon basically through all these savage, devilish individuals. We've murdered, killed, especially a lot of women. All right, but the thing is, on a lot of these cases prior to Khanice Jackson, yeah, the so-called government who basically said that okay, the hill we want to die on is that we want the status quo to remain as it was, because as I said, they don't give a damn about Khanice Jackson. Because when Prime Minister Holness, Babs Grange, and some of these other people are talking about, yeah, this is tragic, it's horrible, we must see that justice is done. Keep people what they're not saying. They're not saying anything about pushing the harsher laws. We're not going to lead the charge by saying we need to stop. We need to stop being in. We have to start finally acknowledging what the true nature of this country is, and we need to reverse it in earnesty. No more lip service. No more symbolic gestures. We are going to use this woman's death as a way to say we are going to push back against crime as well as the corruption demon that has reigned over Jamaica so long. But predictably, none of them are saying, "Hey, we're not really going to lead the charge," especially Horace Chang. And I want people to understand something about Horace Chang. People say, "Oh, he's weak, he's inept, he's a failure," much like his predecessors. Say, people stop doing that to yourself. Jamaicans, I implore you, stop doing this nonsense where you say, "Oh, these guys just don't know what to do, they're clueless." No, they're not. They know what to do to fight crime, they just don't want to. Because all of them made a pact behind the scenes, maybe directly or indirectly. They said that crime is a normalized phenomenon in Jamaica. As long as it don't affect us personally, I mean, don't as long as it don't affect our own social circles, I mean, yeah, we're okay with this. We're okay with all these people, all these civilians like Khanice Jackson, again being blood sacrifices for this crime, the crime devil. All right, I mean, as long because the thing is, let Khanice Jackson, and I've said some many recordings that let Khanice Jackson being the daughter or the sister or the niece of Andrew Holness or Horace Chang, Babs Grange, and whoever. And yeah, I'm not going to, and same thing for the opposition with Mark Gold and everybody else. Y'all in the same book too. Let this woman have girl have been related to any of them and see how quickly all of them are basically going to be, how quickly all that empty talk and this empty rhetoric goes out. All of them are going to say, we are going to implement new laws, we're going to have better forensics, we're going to do this and that. We're going to make an example that there are not going to be any more Kenise Jacksons in the long run. And yeah, I'm not going to say with the George Floyd thing that I'm not saying that Jamaicans should be out in the streets burning down statues and basically going up to this and this MP, I'm doing this and that and that. I'm not saying reign anarchy and just destroy the society. I didn't say that, but just this should have been a wake up call. Kenise Jackson should have been Jamaica's wake up call. The well deserved wake up call. Because again, I can tell you off the top of my head how many females, especially, have been also suffered just as much as just a cruel and demonic fate as this poor girl, like Navia Sinclair. And again, I talk about how that dirtbag judge and attorney are trying to get her killer who's her ex-boyfriend. Alina's sentenced back for his crap that he's not mentally, he's not of sound mind. Fuck out to here with that. Same thing with Tamika Richards, again, killed by her ex-boyfriend. The British, I didn't even know about who this girl was. Supposed to be this upcoming DJ who was apparently murdered by her baby father. Just before Kenise Jackson's body was found. But the funny thing is that they're not really saying anything about the British. Because they're not even saying anything about these men who killed these women for the most part, except for Nave Sinclair's dirt scum sucking boyfriend. They're not saying anything about any of these men being caught. And probably it's a case where maybe which means either that these men are still laying low, that people are protecting these men, these devils, or could have been a case where they decided to do the world a favor and take their own lives, and we yet to find their body, or maybe some people about their lives dealt with them and they've yet to find the bodies. And let's us also remember, yeah, and I can also bring up Karen Nugent again. That I don't know if it was this Victoria Mutual employee. I think that's what she was. Was found burnt up in her own house and tied. Nobody said anything about who did this or what for whatever reason. And let's not also remember that senior citizen, two grandchildren were murdered last year in the last year by those savages. Thinking Grandspan. If I'm mixing up the plate locations, forgive me. And again, nothing's been said about any leads or any suspects whatsoever. And like I said, I could go on and on about all these people, not just the women who have been part of this, who have been victims of the crime devil. But Khanice Jackson, the fact you're giving her so much attention, even though a lot of it is just symbolic gestures, of course, this should have been Jamaica saying to themselves, we need enough is enough. All right. This whole thing where we've said that cowardice and complicitness are better strategies when dealing with things like this, that should have been Jamaica's wake up call at this point. That there are going to be less Khanice Jacksons. If her memory meant anything to you, everybody in Jamaica, majority Jamaicans, and I'm talking about the Jamaicans who know who a lot of these devils and barbaric brutes are, who are doing this, that you're going to start working to deal with these guys, and people in the system are going to stop that benign neglect policy crap. All right, because even when they're talking about the pepper spray thing, which again should have been addressed correctly way before this. We should have not had this delayed reaction that Jamaica's still partaking in. That needs to be cut out right now. All right. I did not know Khanice Jackson. I do not pretend that I am that that we're close friends or buddies or whatever. I don't even know the people around her. I know what her death symbolizes. What it should symbolize is this is Jamaica's basically saying that we need to start being in denial about that crime, the crime monster. As which of course, and once we deal with acknowledge the crime monster, acknowledge that Jamaica undercurrent has always been about coexisting with evil. Just like I talked with the Stefika Smith, and again, that's another victim who she didn't even make the headlines that Khanice Jackson did. But then again, she's not compared to Khanice Jackson, she's not a pretty face just like her. But that's neither here nor there. But Jamaica, on a cultural level, on a systematic level, said that we're okay existing with evil. We said that hey, we went due to that colonial system that we had, which is based in satanic culture, by the way. Instead of purging that culture from our psyche, from Jamaica, we decided that we are going to co-opt that evil, that devil that has long resided in Jamaica for centuries since colonialism was brought into the island. We decided that instead of moving away from that devil, you're going to coexist with that devil. Here's the problem with Jamaica and the rest of the world, countries like that, especially America, and this is to you directly also. You may think that coexisting with the devil, yeah, you think that you can coexist with the devil. The devil does not want to coexist with you whatsoever. All right. And again, this girl is basically, as I've said before, was another blood sacrifice to that devil that resides in Jamaica. That devil, and that devil can never be satisfied. And to the Jamaicans who especially like to believe, hey, that's not going to be me. Guess what, dumbass? Khanice Jackson's own mom and her boyfriend, everyone family thinks this is not going to happen to my daughter. This is not going to happen to her. That's not going until it happened to her. And this is the thing that's also the problem with Jamaica is that a lot of them think that, hey, as long as it don't affect me, yeah, okay, whatever. We'll just be in denial. We're just going to basically say, we're just basically going to be marching like lemons off a cliff or whatever. All right, as long as it don't affect me, of course. I mean, yeah, that's not really my problem until it becomes your problem. And as I said before, Khanice Jackson's that it did not start with this girl. He's not going to end with her. And that Politics Watch said it better than I ever could. Well, he's more knowledgeable in certain in certain things than I ever will be. But he basically says that is that you connect with this girl because she again pretty face, apparently a very likable personality. Like she connects with a lot of females, especially that and so on. And the thing is that yeah, for now she's just basically focus of attention for the time being. Guess what? As I said though, is that if you think that's all, if you genuinely think that okay, that this is not, this is your cue for Jamaica to start really trying to turn back this destroy this conveyor belt of death and destruction that resides in Jamaica, you don't really care about this girl. This girl basically is just meant to be a photo op for you. This is just someone that you're just going to go feign concern and care about until yeah, okay, till the next pretty face ends up being found dead in the exact way. But the good thing I can say about Khanice Jackson, and there's nothing good to be said about him to this girl. At least she's gotten just, fam's gotten just. Cause, and again, I commend the JCF for apprehending the right guy and basically put him away. But again, I'm not popping my champagne till I see what sentence this guy gets. All right, cause that is what we are. That's the next thing we have to watch. Because as this moment, her Khanice Jackson is going to slowly die away from the headlines. Our so-called MPs in both parties are basically going to just be going on to the next trend phase or trend that's going to happen in, and then we're not really, they're not going to be mentioning her again and whatever. Even when the trial of her murder comes up, there'll be fake outrage, but then again, there's a likelihood that this monster who and he knows how to play the system, he'll get a bullshit sentence. I hope I'm wrong on that, but this is what's going to be here because, again, they've forgotten about Nev Sinclair. They've forgotten about that grandmother and her two granddaughters who were killed by those devils. They basically don't care about Tamika Richards. They don't care about the British. They don't care about all Karen Nugent. They don't care about all these other countless females that have been murdered. But the thing is about this culture in Jamaica is that scarcity mindset too many of our males have. This is what we need to also be calling out. And yeah, I also remember that one female cadet whose name I forget. Forget the one who was killed by her baby daddy, who then killed their own son and himself. He should have taken himself out and left her and the baby alone. But the thing is, as I said, she did not get any attention. What Khanice Jackson is, but in closing, I say this not to kind of sound like a broken record. This is good that she's getting attention. I'm not really against that. I'm against how she's getting attention. I'm against what you're making this dead girl's image into. That this is just someone who's just basically meant to be just a little symbolic gesture because hey, you see a pretty face who could have been anything, who's nice to look at, whatever. You're not saying that her death is going to be what helps to slowly, and this is not overnight, this is what's going to turn Jamaica back from that crap, that abyss that we've been heading into for decades. This is the part where we start saying from now on is that there are going to be less Khanice Jacksons. There are going to be less Karen Nugents. There are going to be less Tamika Richards. There are going to be less the British. And on all these other people who will be here till 9 a.m. in the morning naming. But again, I'm not surprised that we're just basically know that the hype around her is dying down. Just like with George Floyd, that yeah, we're just going back to go to same old, same old. And the next victims that come along, they're not even going to be making the headlines for very long. Cause yeah, we just basically just found, yeah, we're just using this dead girl's memory for hype, and that's all it's meant to be. It's just a photo op. And if you really care about Khanice Jackson, on what happened to her, this should be your wake up call. And I say to the Jamaicans who are about that life. The other people who are not about that life are basically gonna, or this is going to be in one ear and right out the other. But Jamaicans, the Jamaicans are about that, who are not on that tip. This should basically, Khanice Jackson in the long run needs to be a catalyst against Jamaica pushing back and ultimately in the long run destroying the crime devil.